What is up, guys? I'm your friendly neighborhood web war fanatic, and we are back with another installment of my best way to play X Hero series. And this time we are doing Ant-Man here. So I'll be going over different aspect hooks for Ant-Man, and then I'll be going over an example deck list of what I think is the best way to play this hero, and I'll go over an example playthrough, showing off that deck list here. So first up, I want to give a huge shout out to my channel members as always. I had a members poll here asking you guys what should be the next hero, for the series, and you guys voted for Ant-Man here with 39% of the votes. I think it was a pretty close poll. Scarlet Witch almost won over there, and whatever the channels vote for, that's what goes, guys. I do apologize for the hiatus that I had on the series. Because when our Civil War released, I want to play a bunch of Civil War, but yeah, we're gonna get back on the series right now. So yeah, we're gonna do Ant-Man right here, and then I also had a poll asking you guys what is the best way to play Ant-Man and in which aspect, and I'm gonna feature all the comments from channel members talking about what they think is the best way. And aggression won here with 38% of the votes, and then leadership and protection tied here at 24%, and then pool aspect got 14%. I'm only allowed to have 4 options on YouTube polls. Please, YouTube, bring back 5 options on the polls because 5 options is a lot better in my opinion because there are 5 aspects, in Marvel Champions. So I did not put the justice aspect in there, and I put pool instead because I do feel like pool is better than justice, and you guys will probably see in a little bit why. But yeah, okay, let's go through the members' comments here. So first comment that I have here is from Curtis. Huge shots, Curtis. Whenever Ant-Man first released, I played him mostly in Justice with cards like Lay Down the Law. And he only has one signature authority event, so he always seemed to need authority help. But recently, Protection has been nice to use right for a fight to allow for more opportunities to flip to RD. Okay, let's go over the Justice stuff here first with Ant-Man. And we have his hero cards over here on Hall of Heroes. So Ant-Man, he only has one authority event, like Curtis said, which is true. It's a 2-cost event here called Hive Mind. And this card you can only play it if you're in your tiny hero form. As a hero action, you can remove 2 threat from a scheme and remove 1 additional threat from that scheme for each army of ants support you control. So Ant-Man has 3 copies of the armies of ants here. This is a really cool support here from Ant-Man. Very thematic as well. So it's a support you just put into play. And as a hero action, if you're in your tiny form, you can exhaust this card to deal 1 damage to enemy, right? Command those ants to like attack enemy, and it's not an attack event or anything like that, right? So it doesn't count as attack damage, so it's gonna bypass stuff like retaliate, it can knock off toughs, all that stuff. So army ants is really cool here. So you want to play these cards anyways, but getting them down is very beneficial with the hive mind here because you can do additional threat removal. So you have all 3 armies of ants in play. The hive mind is gonna do 5 threat removal for 2 costs, which is really good, very efficient authority event there. But other than that, Aemon does not have any other authority events. But he does have a Thort stat of 2 in his tiny form here. And also has a response, after you change to this tiny form, you can remove 1 threat from a scheme. So in my opinion, that's going to be the main source of threat removal from Ant-Man. Basically, the Thor stat of 2 is very, very good, but then when you're flipping all your forms, each time you change down to this form, you can take 1 threat off a scheme, and that's going to really accumulate and pile up, right? So like for example, if you can like play a player side scheme, on turn 1, that side scheme's going to have 3 per player threat. So in True Soul, it's going to have 3 threat, right? Like let's say you have like a build support something in play. Then the moment that you flip up, from alter ego, change up to hero form here, you can take 1 threat off of that scheme and it immediately Thor for 2. So Ant-Man is really, really good with player side schemes. I love running a bunch of player side schemes with him, and that's definitely a great way to go with him, in the justice aspect, because he can easily Thor those out, even on turn 1. And then you can put like chance encounters, you can put skilled investigators, all that stuff working with side schemes one way or another's, right? So Ant-Man has a lot of synergy if he can, flip his forms and then remove threat each time he goes into his tiny form here. And then he also has the resize, which is a hero action. Change your other hero form and then draw a card. So if you flip up, to giant form, you can play the resize, change over to tiny form, draw a card, and also trigger the responser on your tiny form and do some more threat removal. And then Curtis also mentioned lay down law. I think it's a very, very efficient Thor event. It came in Ant-Man's hero pack actually. So 1 cost justice Thor event here. Hero response Thort. So this is considered a Thor activation, or so if you have a patrol minion, you will not be able to play this card to remove that from the main scheme, right? Because the patrol minion blocks from Thor in the main scheme, and this is a Thor because it has that Thor word right there. After you change form as a hero response, you have to change into one of your hero forms, right? Because it's a hero response to trigger this. remove 3 threat from a scheme, and a 4 threat instead if you pay for this card using a mental resource. Guys, I mean, 4 justice from the core set, 2 costs for 4 threat removal is good. It's still good, to this day. So lay down law, very, very efficient here. 1 cost event to remove potentially 4 threat if you can hit the kicker with the mental resource. At worst, it's 1 for 3, which is still highly efficient. So this is a very, very cool card, and it's particularly cool for Ant-Man because he can easily change forms, right? Normally, if you're playing like a regular hero, like let's say like Peter Parker, Spider-Man, you're an alter ego form and your hero form. That's only 2 forms for your identity card, right? So if you want to trigger this, you have to start the turn in alter ego, have this card in your hand, change form to hero form, so you can trigger the hero response and play lay down a law. So it's not super versatile because you may not always have this card when you start off the turn in your alter ego. But Ant-Man here, he can start off the turn, in his hero form, and whether he is in, I could go all the way back up here, whether he's in his tiny form or giant form, whenever you flip to the other form, so if you're going from tiny to giant or giant to tiny, it does count as changing form, and you're ending that in hero form, so you can play the lay down the law there and get that extra threat removal, which is very, very good with Ant-Man. So he definitely has cool synergies in the justice aspect with the ability to change forms there and trigger the lay down the law because he has 2 different hero forms here. One thing to keep in mind with Ant-Man is that he does have a hand size of only 4 in his giant form, but he does have the hand size of 5 in his tiny form here. So whenever I'm playing Ant-Man, I prefer to end my player phases in the tiny form here, so I'm able to draw back up to the hand size here of 5. And then that's going to be more efficient for Ant-Man anyways, because you want to do more threat move, especially like during the early parts of the game. Ant-Man's not your best rush hero, even though he does have a attack stat of 3 in his giant form, right? You want to kind of get built out Ant-Man a little bit first, get down all of his army of ants, his Ant-Man's helmet, and all that stuff, right? And then another thing to note is that with the resize here, you can essentially change forms more than once per turn because you have 1 manual flip per turn, right? So let's say you start off the turn in your tiny form, you can flip up to hero form. That's your 1 manual flip per turn, but you can still play resize and immediately change back over to tiny form. So you're flipping like 2 times a turn because this flip with the resize does not count as your 1 manual flip, right? So you can technically play both resizes and also use your 1 manual flip in the same turn and like flip up bunch of times. So yeah, Ant-Man definitely has synergies in the justice aspect here. Let's hop back over to Curtis' comment because he also gives a huge shout outs to protection here. So recently, protection has been very nice to use ready for a fight to allow for more opportunities of flipping to alter ego and then triggering the ready for a fight to go to giant form during the villain phase and then ending the turn in tiny or alter ego to avoid giant forms 4-card hand size. So yeah, that is really cool. And he also shouts out Perseverance and Hidden Base as nice inclusion to the deck, and he also thinks that Repurpose on the helmet can be a good option for going for that final push. So let's talk about Ready for a Fight and what he's talking about here with how you want to end your turns and everything, right? So Ready for a Fight is a very, very cool card, and I think it actually works very well with Ant-Man because you change to any hero form with it, right? So normally for a normal hero for Ready for a Fight, you don't have to change forms if you're already in hero form. Like let's say you're Peter Parker Spider-Man, and then it says change your hero form. Well, you're already in hero form, so you can still cancel scheme activation if the villain gets like an advance and have the villain attack you by triggering the effects of the Ready for a Fight. But for Ant-Man here, he can change from his tiny form to his giant form and get the benefits of form changing, right? Because Ant-Man is a form changing hero, so he has a response, right? And then after you change to your giant form, you can deal 1 damage to enemy. So you can proc this effect, and then if you have your Ant-Man's helmet down, you can also proc this. Your response after you change the giant form, heal 2 damage from your hero. So Ready for Fight is so cool because you can end the turn in either alter ego or in your tiny form, so you draw back up to that 6-card or 5-card hand size, right, when you end the player phase. And then you wait for the villain to either scheme here on this form or attack you in this form, or sorry, not attack you here. Either scheme here in this form, or the villain pulls like an advance and you're in your hero form here. You can still trigger the Ready for a Fight, make the villain not scheme anymore, and then you flip to your giant form here. Trigger this response to deal damage to enemy and also heal with the response from Ant-Man's helmet, and is not count as changing forms as your manual flip because you're changing forms during the villain phase anyways, but it's also through the effect of a card like Ready for a Fight. Then when the player phase comes back around, you can change from your giant form down to your tiny form, trigger the response here to remove 1 thing from a scheme, and also trigger the response from the helmet when you change the tiny form, which is to draw a card, right? So Very, very cool shenanigans that Ant-Man can definitely do with Ready for Fight. It just gives him extra ways to change forms, which is definitely what Ant-Man wants to do, right? I do want to give a shout out here to Ready to Rumble. I think that's a very solid card for Ant-Man because he's constantly changing forms, so being able to get it ready there is always going to be good. So you always want to look for like the aspect cards that allow Ant-Man to do different effects if he changes forms, or aspect cards that allow him to change forms, like the Ready for Fight and Protection. So yeah, Ant-Man definitely has a very, very good build, in Protection with the Ready for Fight. So that's a really good shout out here from Curtis. And then obviously he has other cool form changing cards here with Perseverance and the Hidden Base, and also Repurpose. I don't know if it's the best card for him, but if you're playing him in Protection, you can definitely include Energy Barriers. And then obviously what Curtis is saying here is that you can repurpose at the very end of the game your Ant-Man's helmet. You discard this 3-cost upgrade. You can choose Thor or attack, probably choose attack at the end of the turn, or at the end of the game, to get +3 to your attack stat, and you can also ready up and swing super duper hard. So yeah, I mean, Ant-Man definitely has very good aspect hooks in Protection. I think Protection for me would be my second best way to play him, but I don't think it's the best way to play him, at least in my opinion here. Let's go over some other comments here from channel members, but that's a really good shout out for the Ready for Fight. So we have a comment here from the Celtic Canadian. Not sure if it's the best, but he would love to see an aggression Ant-Man deck here and release the bugs. So yeah, I mean, Ant-Man here releasing the bugs in with the army of ants, like we mentioned earlier. Very thematic, very, very fun. And Ant-Man has a very cool card here in aggression called Surprise Attack. That card is so fun for Ant-Man because you can do tons of damage. It's basically the aggression version of the lay down the law here, right? But the surprise attack comes from the Wasp hero pack. So it's a 1-cost, aggression event here. And similar effect here to this. Hero response, after you change form, you can do 3 damage to enemy, but 4 damage if you pay for the physical resource. It's not quite as efficient as, lay down the law here, because threat removal is usually valued a little bit higher than damage in Marvel Champions. But still, 1 for 3 or 1 for 4, very, very efficient. And it works very well with the form changing hero like Ant-Man, because like we talked about before, he can easily change from one hero form to another hero form right here with the tiny and giant forms, and still be able to proc those hero responses, because he's going to end up in a hero form. So yeah, he can definitely do some cool things in aggression here. And I think another cool thing for Ant-Man in aggression is building out his attack stat. So in his giant form here is attack stat of 3, which is already above average. Then you can obviously give him like the combat training, the aggressive conditioning to build up to like a 5 attack stat, right? You can also give him the combat specialist to build up to 6 if you clear out specialized training that player stat scheme. So then he can get up to 6, right? But you can also give him his giant strength here. This upgrade right here, he has 2 copies of this in his kit. It's a 1-cost upgrade, so very cheap. After you change the giant hero form, you get +1 attack until the end of the turn. So it only happens, for that phase, right? But basically, if you're in your alter ego and you change the giant form, or if you're in tiny form, you change up the giant form, you'll have +2 attack if you have both of your giant strengths in play. If you already built attack to 6, he now has 8 attack, guys. 8 attack is massive and very thematic to this, big giant form of Ant-Man here. And that is very, very fun, because you can also trigger stuff like Quick Strike, or like Smash the Problem, really utilizing that huge attack stat that you got, just naturally with the base attack stat of 3, with his giant strength, and also with extra boost to its attack. So, any build that, really works off having high attack will also work very well with aim and aggression. And I definitely think that he has some really fun hooks there in aggression. So I can definitely see why this poll, a lot of people voted for him to be in aggression here. And I also want to give a huge shout out to leadership here, which is Ant-Man's pre-con deck here. Comes with leadership cards. And the main card, similar to the Ready to Rumble that we talked about, is going to be Moxie here. I think that's going to be his main synergy in leadership. Hero response, after you change forms, your hero gets +1 throw, +1 attack, and +1 defense until the end of the round. 0-cost event, so it's free to play. So I mean, if you have 3 copies of Moxie in your hand, and then you change, from either alter ego form to like one of your 2 giant form, for example, you can play all 3 Moxies there, because it's the same timing window. Get +3 to all your stacks until the end of the round, which is crazy, because then you also have the +3 defense during the villain phase and defend for a whole lot as well, right? Like we talked about before, Ant-Man is going to have really cool synergies with cards that give him responses whenever he can change form, and Mox is definitely one of those, right? One thing that you guys will notice is that cards that have response after you change form, do X, Y, or Z, These cards are usually highly efficient, right? Zero cost to get +1 to all your stats until the end of the round is a pretty efficient card here, especially if you can get additional rays on top of that. That'll also be very, very good. So for Ant-Man, he can, in leadership, he can put in a bunch of Avengers allies, and you can also put in Earth's Mightiest Heroes to exhaust those allies to ready Ant-Man back up. And then with the extra stat boost from Moxie, he can do additional thwarting or additional attacking, during that player phase with those extra ready. So yeah, he could definitely do that. I think that if you're flipping up to your tiny form, you want to utilize that thwart stat with Moxie to give it, the additional thwarting there. If you want to do extra damage, you want to flip up to giant form and use additional stat line that you have there. If you play Earth's Mightiest Heroes and combine that with like a resize, just a bunch of zero cost events here, you can actually like do attacking with Moxie from giant form, flip over to tiny form again, and then do some thorn there with your thorn stat also boosted from Moxie. So very, very fun synergies there, and obviously you're gonna be able to trigger those responses there from whenever you change forms with his hero abilities here and here, and also with the Ant-Man's helmet here as well. So definitely some fun leadership shenanigans for Ant-Man as well. Finally, let's hop back over to the pool here, and unfortunately the pool aspect got the least votes of the 4 aspects that I put on this poll. But as you guys may have suspected, because I actually put the pool aspect here, on this poll, and I took out Justice, I actually think that the pool aspect is the best way to play Ant-Man. Guys, I love Ant-Man in the pool aspect. I want to give a huge shout out to Zalukun, who also shouted out, give me that sweet, sweet pool nonsense. I totally agree with him here. And I want to give a huge shout out to one of my channel members, Evil, who put me on Ant-Man in the pool. So Ant in the pool here is a deck created by Mark, Evil, a Newfie lad here on a Marvel CDB. And this is an example deck list of Ant-Man in the pool aspect. He has so many synergies here, guys. Okay, so let's go through all of them here. So the first thing is he has the Mulligan here. So Mulligan is a really cool pool aspect card where you cannot play it if you have played another card this phase, but it actually you can discard your hand and then draw a new hand, drawing back up to your hand size. So simply because Ant-Man in his giant form here has a hand size of 4, if you're starting off the turn here, with this hand size of 4, because you unfortunately had to end that last player phase in your giant form, well, you can change over to your alter ego or your your alter ego here, or to your other hero form, and immediately play the mulligan, and you draw back up to 5. So now you're getting an extra, card or 2 extra cards from your regular giant form with the mulligans there. Also, Ant-Man also has his one of the most underrated cards in my opinion, the Risk Gauntlets here. It's a 1-cost upgrade. As a hero action, if you're in giant form, you can exhaust the gauntlet, spend 2 physical, stun enemy. Hero action, if you're in tiny form, exhaust the gauntlet to spend 2 energies to confuse enemy. Guys, this is an on-demand stun or confuse, whatever that you want. I believe this is the only on-demand way to stun or confuse enemy. On demand is insane, guys, because like it's not an event. You can do this every single turn as long as you're in either giant form or tiny form. And one thing that's cool with this card is that after you play it, you're no longer playing it in order to trigger the effect, right? It's already in play. You're just triggering this action right here. So with the effects of Mulligan here, you can still, for example, you can spend 2 physical resources, stun an enemy by exhausting the risk gauntlets, and then if you have the resource, you can still play the mulligan here for 3 costs. Discard the rest of your hand, and then draw back up to your hand size. So that is tons of value. You always want to have resource sinks like the risk gauntlets here whenever you're using a card like mulligan over here. And that really synergizes with the pool aspect, because the pool aspect has tons of other resource sinks like the stick to itiveness, right? So it's a 2-cost upgrade here, and as a hero action, you spend a physical resource and exhaust card, ready up your hero. So you can trigger this, ready, and get ready back up, and then still play a mulligan after that, right? So you combine, stick to itiveness with the risk gauntlets from Ant-Man, and you also combine that with tic-tac-toe. And then after you do that, you can still spend the three resources to play your mulligan and draw back up to a fresh hand. So yeah, I love those shenanigans here with Ant-Man. I think that is definitely a whole ton of fun, and that's one of my favorite synergies, with Ant-Man and Mulligan. Another really cool synergy that Ant-Man has in the pool aspect is all the healing that he gets, right? So Ant-Man is one of the few heroes that does not have to flip down to his alter ego and use that recovery stat to heal, right? The moment that he touches alter ego, he can automatically heal 1 damage here, and you can immediately also play resize to change back up to your hero form, so you don't have to actually end your turns, in your alter ego if you don't want to, right? If you don't want to have that villain scheme. But also, if you have your Ant-Man's helmet down, whenever you change your giant form, you can also heal 2 damage from your hero. So you have this healing stacked on top of your healing here to get your hit points back up to your full hit points of 12 here. You combine that with a healing factor and get additional healing whenever the player phase begins. Why do we want healing so much in the pool aspect? Well, I mean, healing is just always good to, stay healthy, but also the pool aspect has the triple resources here: self-confidence, self-control, and self-preservation, where all of them here, if you have no sustained damage, basically meaning if you're at your full hit points, this is a triple resource here. And if you have less than 5 sustained damage there, then this is a double resource. So we can easily get that up with Ant-Man with all of his healing, get this to be a triple or double resource, and then get a ton of value from these resource cards to pay for a bunch of expensive cards, right? Ant-Man's really only expensive card is going to be his Ant-Man's helmet here as his, 3-cost upgrade, but you want to play stuff like the Mansion, the Quinn Carrier, and the Heli Carrier here with Ant-Man as well, because Ant-Man has a lot of supports and upgrades that you want to play. You got to play all 3 copies of the armies of ants here, right? So, I mean, to get this down, it's really good to get like a Quinn Carrier down and use the Quinn Carrier to generate wild resource and get the army ants immediately down as well. And you want to really build Ant-Man out. I think that he is kind of a build-out hero, and he definitely does not work that well if you do not have the Ant-Man's helmet down. The pool aspects triple resource definitely help a lot with that, and I think that's tons of fun here. So let's hop over to an example playthrough that I played this exact deck here, that was created by Newfie Lad by Mark, and I have it the playthrough over here. So on this turn right here, the player phase is just beginning. We're at 11 out of 12 life here, and this is just a really cool turn that I thought was very fun with this build here. Let's go ahead and flip up right here to hero form. So when you change hero form with the helmet, we heal 2 damage, go back up to our full life of 12. Giant uses, when you change form, do 1 damage to enemy. Let's put 1 on the same berserker. Right, so all we're doing is flipping up there. We get a heal up, and we also get to do a damage because of Ant-Man's abilities whenever he's changing form. Then let's go ahead and let's swing for 3 on a same berserker. And then we're going to play a resize. So change your other hero form. We change back down to our tiny form. We say exhausted, but we also draw a card with resize. Tiny form says, I've changed form, remove 1 from the scheme. And then Ant-Man's helmet says after you change tiny form, draw cards. Okay, draw cards as well. Got a lot of ramp there. And now this is a triple resource because we're... Yeah, so now that ended up perfectly, right? Because we were at 11 health, and then let me go back a little bit. And then we healed back up to 12 because we changed up to your giant form. So when you flip down tiny form, you can draw a card. Draw 2 cards with the resize and the helmet. And we drew into a pool triple resource, the self-preservation. So now this resource is now a triple resource because we're at full life. So it's very, very synergistic with Ant-Man to easily recover back up and then get his pool triple resource to be triple resources. And that has a whole ton of fun with the sequencing here. So Ant-Man's helmet says after you change tiny form, draw cards. Okay, draw cards as well. Got a lot of ramp there. And now this is a triple resource because we're at full life. Let's use the triple to play Heli Carrier. And yeah, I mean, that just has a value. We can immediately use a triple, to play a Helicarrier, and we can use a Helicarrier right away to play some other cards as well. That basically highlights why I love the pool aspect so much with Ant-Man. A lot of flipping shenanigans, a lot of resource sinks, and you can also trigger hero actions like this from the improvised weapons, right? If you spend all the 3 different resource types here for his hero action to discard his card, you can play a mulligan afterwards if you have the economy for it, right? And with like the Quinn Carrier, Helicarrier in play, you usually have the economy for that, especially if you have like a pool triple resource as well, or like a double resource like we have right here. So tons of fun shenanigans with Ant-Man in the pool aspect. In my opinion, this is definitely the best way to play this hero. But yeah, let me know down in the comments, guys, what do you think? Is the pool aspect really the best way to play Ant-Man? Do you agree or disagree with the points that I made in this video? If you disagreed, what do you think is the best way to play Ant-Man here? I think that Ant-Man is actually one of those heroes that has so many different unique aspect hooks because of his ability to form change so often, right? Like we talked about earlier, lay down the law for justice, surprise attack for aggression, moxie for leadership, right for fight for protection, and then the pool aspect just has a bunch of shenanigans here with like mulligan. The stick to itiveness here too is so good to give him extra ready so he can do more thwarting if he's in his tiny form, and then for that big final push and you build your attack set up with that giant strength, you can swing again here, well again that ready in your giant form, right? So he can do tons of thwarting or tons of damage there with the universal ready here from the stick to itiveness. So yeah, I hope you guys all found this video informative, and I'll see you guys all in the next one.